What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer, Logan Landers. Join me here today to talk about the Florida State Seminoles, a team who, as I just said in pre-production, can't wait for this season to start because of all the craziness that happened at the end of their last year in regular season, going into the postseason and whatnot. We covered that very extensively here on the show. Of course, the Florida State Seminoles. Helping me talk about this team now coming into a new year, a fresh year, is my guy from the Elite Sports Entertainment Network, Jay McLovin. Jay, how you doing, buddy? And what do you think about Florida State this year?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's good to be here, Logan. Well, we're talking about the 12th ranked Florida State Seminoles. Now, we're talking about a team that lost 10 players to the draft and the transfer portal, graduation, and whatever other means. They are returning 56.4% of the production from last year is coming back. So even though they lost quite a bit, they are still retaining quite a bit. And where they can actually do with this, we'll see. They got DJ Ukulele coming back. He'll be struggling. I think he's struggling. He struggled with his accuracy, and the expectations for him last season were not as good as what he did. So I think Brock Glenn at some point, Logan, I think in this season we're going to see Glenn take over at quarterback, and I think Brock Glenn will take over at quarterback, and I think Ukulele winds up on the sidelines, and I think it could be basically due to injuries. I don't know if this guy can stay healthy, to be honest with you. Another thing I know about him is I think you'll get 1,000 yards out of Malik Benson. If you look at, he's a Bama transfer from last year, so I think he's going to get about 1,000 yards, but they're going to need him to get 1,000 yards playing in the where they're playing. Patrick Payton and Marvin Jones Jr., I think they're going to have double-digit sacks this season, Logan. So I think those are the big key things I would talk to look out for from Florida State. I think DJ goes on the IR. I think Brock Glenn will take over at some point. I think Malik Benson, the Alabama transfer, is going to get over 1,000 yards. And I look for him to at least go. I think for him to look at number 10, for DJ Ukulele to look at Benson first and foremost every single time. So watch for that guy to really take over. The schedule, they have some tough matchups. They got Memphis, SMU, and Notre Dame. Now, both Memphis and SMU last year were 10-win seasons, so don't look past them. And Notre Dame is a great independent matchup as well that they usually play in terms of rivalries. So I think that's going to be their tough ones. I think those will be the tough three that they lose. I really think that's the only three that they lose. I think they're a plus 290 to win the ACC and a plus 2,500 to win the national title if you're in that betting mood. I think this is a run-first offense, which will produce at least 2 500 yards running backs. So I think that's another thing to keep an eye out for as well. So again, I think the wide receivers are going to come out huge in Benson. I think the running backs are going to do well. I think the O-line that started 190 last year at the FBS level, 123 at the FSU level are going to do well for them. The health of both the tackles, Robert Scott and Maurice Smith will be key. So I think everybody else will be fine. So that O-line, look for that O-line as well, Logan. But I think FSU will drop 3, but somehow or another try to scrap into that top 12.
Yeah, when I look at this team, obviously we know last year was a good year for them. We saw what they did,
Right.
and how good they played. But is this year, like you said, maybe a slight decline, perhaps? But like you said, they've lost a lot of players this past season, right? They lost a lot of guys, and some teams struggle with how they can recap from that, how they can get back, and some teams thrive. So we'll really get to see what this team's about and how well they perform. I think that ultimately, when I see Florida State, you mentioned, how is DJ Ukulele going to do? How well is he going to perform? Is he going to, be healthy, stay on the field, look good? Or maybe not so much, as you suggested, and he might have to take a back seat, we'll say, for this season. Who knows? But I think that the rest of this team, you're seeing guys on this staff, like you mentioned. You got a lot of guys who've been on the team for a while. Some seniors and juniors like Colin Murlock. You got guys like Jackson West, Maurice Smith, as you mentioned. Got Richie Leonard over there looking good. Jeremiah Byers at the right tackle spot doing his thing. So I think the offense will be fine. And then defense, you mentioned Patrick Payton, really solid D end. Guys, of course, like Marvin Jones Jr., who is an absolute stud as well. Of course, can't forget guys, of course, like Shemaine Brown, Devontae Brown as well. And, of course, Earl Little Jr., who they got coming over at that sophomore. I think that this team does good. I think they have what it takes to compete, Jay, for an ACC title for sure. Top 12, perhaps. I would say they'd have to live up to their potential. Everyone has to be clicking for that to happen. But I mean, like I said, we know what this team did last year. They have a lot of expectations, but I think they fall just a little short this year. Obviously, they went 13-1 last year, so only had one blemish on their record, and that was, of course, last game of the season to Georgia, which they just want to wash out of their mouth as soon as they can. So I think they do good. I think they'll compete for an ACC title. And if they do more, I'd say that's a little bit above expectations for me with how I see this team. But overall, I think Florida State, solid season nonetheless. And for all the Noles fans out there, keep on chopping away. I think we're going to be a good season nonetheless. Hey, there we go, Jay, hitting it nice. But we all know the Atlanta Braves do it better. I got to throw it out there. But hey, appreciate you though, man, coming on the show talking about Florida State. I was going to be a host and producer.